You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibi. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, finally appeared before a House committee which is investigating the CBN's cash swap policy. Now, the Senate and the House of Representatives had repeatedly asked the CBN to extend the deadline for the cash swap policy by 6 months to allow Nigerians deposit their old notes and ensure sufficient new Naira notes in circulation. Now, at the meeting, the CBN governor disclosed new measures which the Apex Bank hopes will address the problems Nigerians have been facing while trying to deposit the old currencies and getting new ones. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, finally appears before members of the House Ad Hoc Committee. This appearance comes after he failed to honor 2 previous invitations from the Ad Hoc Committee of the House of Representatives investigating the scarcity of the new Naira notes. The Speaker of the House of Representatives had threatened to arrest him for failing to honor the invitation of the House.
The policy is a government policy being carried out by a component of Nigerian government. The institution here also is a component of the government, in fact an arm of government. So this is of course a welcome submission, it is a welcome answer, but unfortunately at a belated point. Only if you had communicated this to us much earlier, the crisis would not have come up at all. Nigerians would have gone home to sleep without any fear of let or hindrance.
First, let me apologize for my inability to be here. It was not intended to undermine your work, undermine the committee, neither is it intended to undermine the hallowed chambers of the House of Representatives. Unfortunately, I was out of the country on these 2 occasions. Either when I was on my official vacation, or the last one being when I was member of the presidential delegation to the Dakar 2 summit at Dakar, Senegal.
Mr. Emefiele reacts to the scarcity of the new notes after pausing over-the-counter withdrawals.
Banks, as we are issuing you with this currency, load these monies into your ATM. Ladies and gentlemen, the ATM is a robot. You just give it a command, and you say the maximum anybody can collect is whether it's 20,000 or whether it's 40,000. That's what everybody collects, whether you are a priority or not a priority customer. That is the reasoning behind this decision. Everybody go to the ATMs. And of course, they've been loading those monies into the ATMs. Unfortunately, and indeed, I addressed the bankers on Sunday, and I expressed to them my disappointment, and in fact, disappointment of the president, disappointment of leaders in the country about the way this has gone on. Because many of us have unfortunately seen the new Naira, instead of being used for the purpose it is meant, the new Naira is being used in parties, in celebrations. And some of them said, well, maybe it's money from the ATM. I said, no. Money from the ATMs are already broken. They are in leaflets. But what we saw being stamped on people at parties were packets of the new Naira notes, which means that they had breached certain aspects of the guidance notes we gave to them. And I told them, and indeed, when I met President Buhari, I told him that even the previous day, had met with the EFCC, ICPC, and the NFIU, and that we're now going to bring the EFCC, ICPC, NFIU to join us in monitoring the flow of this currency to our people. And I must say that I'm even very delighted. Only yesterday again, I even read that the DSS themselves have even started, which is what we want. So that everybody knows that we are conducting this activity to the best of our abilities. We are doing this for the good of Nigerians. We are doing this so the Nigerian economy can be better than it is today. And I am saying that we are beginning to see some of the benefits. Like I said, inflation last month somewhat trended, at least it's not rising, it's not stagnating, it's somewhat moderating. And we're thinking and expecting that it will continue to moderate. Exchange rate will stay relatively stable. And what we're even hoping with this exercise, that Naira can even get stronger. With this exercise, we have seen that with this, we're able to support the activities of our security agencies. And I'm happy, and I'm sure we all know, or some of us know, that the incidence of banditry and ransom taking are somewhat at least reduced at this time. Just making the job of security agencies more effective. So what we're saying is that what we have done here is for the good of Nigeria.
Perhaps the good news to many who are yet to deposit their old notes is Mr. Emefiele agreeing with Section 20, Subsection 3 of the CBN Act.
Yes, like I said, we saw a few failing on the part of the banks, and we appealed to EFCC, appealed to ICPC, appealed to NFIU. They are currently even working with our CBN officials now, nationwide, to make sure that this process goes on seamlessly. We are happy that I said earlier, so far, the exercise has achieved a success of over 75% in our villages and the rest of them. So it is on the basis of that we saw that there were a few complaints here and there, particularly those in the villages. And that was why we said, okay, we now give a 10-day extension for the currency to have, for more and more of this to be collected, and then we'll make more disbursements. But I want to make my last comment. Subject to the content of the CBN Act Section 20, Subsection 3, which says, even after the old currency has lost its legal tender status, that we are mandated to collect those monies. And I stand with the House of Representatives on this. What does that mean? You would have lost its legal tender status, in which case we have moved on, but you have your money that you have not been able to send into the bank. We certainly will give you the opportunity to bring them back into the CBN and redeem it. Either you pay it in your bank account or you want to do exchange, we give you. You will not lose your money. That is the assurance I give to Nigeria. I want to appeal. This is not an easy exercise. It is not an easy exercise, but we are happy that in 19 years, we are able to carry out this important aspect of our mandate. We are grateful that we are doing this. We want to do it, but we seek the support and cooperation of everybody. Support of Nigerians, cooperation of Nigerians. At these initial stages, there will be a few hitches, there will be a few glitches. We apologize. But I'm trying to say this. The overriding interest is the Nigerian economy. Make Nigerian economy stronger. Make Nigerian economy better. Because that is what we owe Nigerians in the position that God has put us today. And I would like to continue to seek your support that we please allow this program to succeed.
Some members of the committee appear dissatisfied with the explanation of the CBN governor on the scarcity of the new notes. They request for all records on the disbursements of the new notes, to which the Apex Bank agrees.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating stolen crude in Nigeria from 2014 till date kicked off these sittings during the week. Now, the head of Interpol Nigeria was one of the government officials invited to its sitting during the week to make clarification on some issues.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating crude oil theft is holding its first session this year. The committee is probing a whistleblower's allegation of illegal sale of 48 million barrels of Nigeria's burning light crude in China in 2015, valued at $2.4 billion. The chairman of the committee invited the International Criminal Police Organization, known as Interpol, to clarify some issues.
The Nigerians who are involved are still within the country. Now, two of them were the ones who approached us, willing to give details of what transpired in this whole situation. But considering the fact that you were not involved in that initial investigation, I want to first start by asking, how come you wrote letters to these individuals after the committee's investigation had commenced and after they had indicated their desire to give evidence to this committee?
There is a request from a competent ministry, the number one law ministry in Nigeria, asking us to trace somebody that is being missing, that is supposed to appear in court. And they attach court processes and others, and warrant, bench warrant and other documents.
The committee is dissatisfied with the submission and accuses the Attorney General of interfering with the investigation of the House of Representatives.
There is a group called Advocacy for Good Governance and Free Nigeria. That is the so-called civil society organization that wrote to the Attorney General claiming there was this international gang of blackmailers trying to blackmail senior officials of the government. How come the Attorney General responded to allegations by a faceless body? So that means the Attorney General himself does not even ascertain the veracity of any organization. I have written to the Mexican embassy, who are now contacting their citizen in Mexico. He is in the open. He even instituted legal action against NMPC in Mexico. Are you aware of that?
I'm not.
This is a person you are calling a fugitive. In his own country too, he took the matter to a court there. We have copies of that, sir. And in Nigeria, these Nigerian citizens are walking free. They are not hiding. So the question is, if a case has already been fully investigated and the matter was referred to a court which suddenly stopped, why are you inviting these individuals who are in plain sight? Your letter was communicated to these people by WhatsApp. I hope you know that. Yes. That's how it was communicated. So that means you know they have an active working line in Nigeria. So they're not in hiding, sir. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. And it will interest my honorable colleagues to know the information just reaching me now is that the person who held surety for them in their bail was informed after your letter, after our letter to the IG complaining about your supposed interference in our investigation, that the case was going to come up again in March. You can see how suddenly the investigation of the committee is now gingering a revisit to some of these issues. And that to us gives us cause for concern. This is what we have just been informed. They have just been informed suddenly again that this case is being brought up. So does that not seem to you like a layman that somebody is trying to quell and muscle these people from talking?
The committee fears for the safety of the whistleblowers and insists that the Ministry of Justice should not make direct requests to the National Central Bureau of Interpol, but should go through the police, as Interpol by law is only expected to respond to requests from local law enforcement agencies.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. 27 States House of Assembly forwarded their resolutions on 35 constitutional amendment bills to the National Assembly. Now, these bills have been in the 36 State Houses of Assembly since early 2022, where state legislators were to examine the bills, vote on them, and return them to the National Assembly, where the bills would then be sent to President Buhari for assent. Now, although 27 state parliaments have voted and returned to the National Assembly these constitutional bills, one critical bill was not passed, and that's the Constitutional Amendment Bill to ensure financial and administrative autonomy for local government councils. We had a chat with a public analyst, Mr. Chibuzo Okereke, to discuss some of these constitutional amendment bills passed by state parliaments and their refusal to grant financial autonomy to local government councils.
The Constitution is our ground norm. It is the compass by which every arm of government operates. In fact, that you are a Nigerian is according to as it is defined in the Constitution. So that is how important that document is. So when we observe that the state assemblies have now made their resolutions and started turning in their report back to the National Assembly, I was particularly excited about it. But again, when you interrogate the outcome of what transpired there, you're also taken aback as how whether we are ready to develop the country, because almost all aspects of local government, autonomy, development, being a third tier of, recognized as a third tier of government, all of them, failed. But we started with 68 items in the alteration proposal. Then the National Assembly passed 44 and transmitted. And I think 35 has been returned successfully now from about 27 states, which already has met the 24 state mark. Even though we have about nine that didn't pass, but most prominent amongst them is this issue of local government autonomy. And everybody knows that everything happens at the local government.
I think that's even one of the reasons why the Ninth Assembly decided to do the process this way, to put them as individual bills.
Yeah.
So if he disagrees with one of them, as it was in the past, the whole thing will not be an exercise in futility in one fell swoop, but he could actually, select some so that the whole process is not, a waste. And so, with what has happened with this amendment process, and all, do you think that this method of amending the Constitution, some would say a piecemeal method, is the best way to go about this?
For the moment, it could be tenable. But if you look at the argument around the Constitution, it's such that we need a brand new Constitution. It's not as if a brand new Constitution is going to make significant change in the attitude of the political leaders who operate the Constitution. No, but it's going to confer a certain psychology of ownership on the people that this document, we actually created it through a plebiscite for us, to govern, ourselves. Unlike the current situation where people believe this document was just thrown at them from the military down to what we have.
Yeah, that seems to be an exciting, a thought towards making this process, more leaner and more efficient. And then there's been this talk that there's a lot of money that's appropriated for the constitutional amendments exercise. Do you think, this has been cost effective so far?
Well, we'll wait and see if the president is able to sign everything that has been passed. Because to examine the economy of the activity, you have to look at the value proposition. If we don't get to the end, which is having the president to assent to trigger the act into effect, it will just amount to complete wastage of time, money, and processes. But maybe if the president is able to sign and state can now, do aviation, fingerprints, and state assemblies will have autonomy. Nobody will now force them to vote against local government autonomy, because it's hypocrisy to vote autonomy for yourself and the local government constitution empowered you to oversee, and you say they don't need the autonomy. So for me, the economy of it will be to see the process get through and become, effective.
I know you have been, one of the proponents of having a brand new constitution, since you've often argued that we, the people, didn't write the constitution. So what other way, because looking at the constitution as it is now, it's only the National Assembly constitutionally mandated, deriving its power from the same constitution to, either amend or review the constitution. What other way can we get a new constitution?
It's very simple. The same section 9 that empowers them to amend the constitution, they have to either create a new section that now stipulates the process of, making a new constitution.
But that section, they would still need to take it to the state houses of assembly to vote, and still the president will need to assent to it.
The only other way is also for by consensus, all authorities to suspend government activities for at least 3 or 6 months, and get the people to constitute a constituent assembly, and the people will come together and make a constitution for themselves. We are not the only country. Many countries have even changed the structure of their governance. In fact, we transited from parliamentary to presidential, even though we were midwifed by the military government. But it happened. We were in parliamentary system before we became a presidential. It took constitutional changes to make that happen. So I think that many National Assembly members today agree that there is need for them to have a constituent assembly. It does not remove the government or dissolve the government in entirety. It's just something that is temporary, maybe 3 months or 6. That is if that is the option we have to follow. The other option is that for everybody to agree that, look, this piecemeal approach is not really helping us and we are spending much on it, and we really need to get the business of government going.
Now, going back to what has just been happening in the National Assembly as regards the constitutional amendment, which of the bills, which will be transmitted to the president to sign, which one excites you the most? Which one do you think would turn around this country largely?
One of the things that excites me the most is the fact that we are now able to separate the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of and that of federal government, because that fusion is not helpful, because you mix politics and serious business. So that separation now allows the Attorney General of the Federation to focus on matters that touches the heart of Nigerians. Another one that is so dear to me is the one on treaty domestication procedure. Nigeria is losing a lot to the fact that our treaties are not being domesticated. Over 400 treaties. And the way and manner, it was just about 2 years ago through the chairman on treaties and protocols and agreements, Honorable Sayo, said that we reactivated the National Depository of Treaties at the Attorney General's office. It was in comatose before now. And every ministry and agency of government have been signing all kinds of treaties, protocols, and agreements, making commitment to international bodies, spending money, and we have not domesticated that. And we know the implication of that in international law. So the fact that we have now taken the step to say we have to domesticate our treaties in this procedure, it will excite me if the president will assent to that. In fact, for me, the president should assent to everything. But also, if you look at the issue of aviation, the issue of fingerprint capturing and all that, railways and co, these things are very, very important that we take it to state level. But if the local government develop, the state has developed, and by extension, the nation has developed.
So how can the 10th Assembly, the incoming 10th Assembly, build consensus on this issue of local government autonomy? Because this matter has lingered for so long.
Yeah, you see, I see the National Assembly, they have to change even their own psychology in constitutional amendment processes. They have to know it's a burden. It's a burden that the Constitution has given them. So they need to engage the executive. By the way our democracy has developed, you could see that the executive dominates everything. And that is why I call our own presidents the big daddy presidents, because everything happens there. In other countries, you see the president coming to their National Assembly to lobby for one thing or the other. Here we are still begging head of agencies and parasites to even appear. So I think they need to take negotiation and consensus building to the executive. The governors, the local government, the traditional rulers, they need to engage differently and explain the need for this.
This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.